So sometimes when you're working with electronic instruments, you can easily be overwhelmed by just the amount of sounds you can theoretically choose, and you really easily get into this browsing mode where you're just clicking on a sound, listening to it, and after a while you've just listened to like 50 different sounds and everything just seems a little redundant. So it basically becomes like some dating app for sounds where within milliseconds you just decide whether you like something or not. And while of course this can be super fun, I just want to share some other type of approach with you in this video that I find super entertaining, but that also might give you another perspective on presets and also brings you to some different results than those that you usually end up with. And before we start, let me quickly say hi. My name is Yannis. I make videos about music production and performance. And in case you'll enjoy this video, keep already in mind that there's more to find on my channel. The challenge itself is kind of simple, and you can do it with anything that is able to store presets. So it can be some actual instrument, some digital instrument that stores presets. It can be your DAW. It can also be a sample library. It's totally up to you. And I also quickly want to share from my own experience that for me, presets were always really unsexy. And if I had some new instrument or plugin, I would always build my sounds myself to actually learn it. And I think that's the best way to actually learn it. But then sometimes I actually tried this approach and thought, yeah, sometimes when I just have not so much time or I just also want to have some fun and see what happens, it can actually be super fun. So this also changed a bit my view on presets, so maybe it can do the same for you as well. So the rules are very simple because once you clicked on a sound, you have to use it. So you can't go into this preview mode where you just change between sounds. You can of course see how it looks like. So for example, here in some library, I say I want a bass sound, and then you see all those sounds. And then once you click on one, you have to use it. And it might sound weird at first, but it's a super nice challenge to actually dive a little deeper in how far you can go with something, even if your first intuitive reaction to this is like, no, that's not my type of sound. Because you can get surprised sometimes what you can actually end up with. So let's just have some example. Personally, I really like this Arturia analog lab, or also their individual synthesizers, because I like their design, many of their sounds, and just enjoy using it. So here you have those huge libraries, and they, for example, always have a sequence section, which I really enjoy, because a sequence is something that already gives you some musical information. So it's cool to start with it because it already might trigger your imagination a little more than just some sounds where you also have to come up with your melodies, which is totally fine as well. Then I like to organize them because for this scenario I want to go with a melodic sequence, and let's just see, go somewhere, and at some point you're just like picking one. And in this case, let's just go for 4 AM. Let's see how this sounds like. Ooh. I like it a lot, it's spooky, but also there's some dissonance. So we already know if we have to combine this with other sounds, it's going to be challenging, but that's the fun part. So now we have to use it. There's no other way around it. At the same time, doing something with the first sound is always the easiest thing because you don't have anything that relates to it. I mean, you have a click, you can pick the tempo, we can also change it later. That's anyway really fun to see what happens if you listen to whatever you created at another tempo. But for now, let's just see how it sounds like if we program one note that just plays through, because with sequences this always helps me to kind of get a vibe. And it's too low for my taste, so let's transpose this an octave higher. And I feel like we should have 2 bars of this note, and then there should be a change. So let's see what happens if maybe here we go a half step down. Nice. I find it interesting. It's dissonant, but I think I'm also kind of curious what our next sounds will be and where this could end up with. So let's actually have a look at some drums. So for drums, I'm going to create some new MIDI track, and since we're in Ableton, we can actually use a drum rack, which is always kind of enjoyable to use. So let's pick here a drum rack. And then we just, let's say we pick one kick sample, one snare sample, and one hi-hat sample. So we open this menu, go to kick. We don't click on anything yet because we're not allowed to listen to it. Let's maybe go down. And what do we have here? What sounds promising? Stomp, lit. I always go for the weird names because also there's quite a chance that the sounds will be a bit more a bit less normal, but that's also the fun of this whole challenge. So let's take this kick drum. Let's listen once. Oh, actually, it's not the pure kick drum. It doesn't have much low frequencies, which you actually expect from a kick drum. But this is what we picked, so this is also what we have to use now. And it's going to be interesting what we can do with it. But let's look for some snare and open the snare menu. Browse a little, and what do we have here? High clinical. Okay. More like some sample sound, also not really a snare, but nice. I'm kind of happy with what we found so far. Let's also look for some hi-hat. And simple thing, but something you also might want to think of is that you sometimes just go somewhere down, so you're not always sticking around the same section in the alphabet, because otherwise you're always going to use sounds with A, and then after a while you know all of them. So just go somewhere else, and so you use some different sounds. So here, what do we have here? Maybe we can use RKTD, because I have no idea what this stands for. Okay, just sounds a bit more like a shaker, but this is our drum kit now. And so let's try making something out of it. So for the kick drum, let's maybe start with quarter notes, keeping it simple. Doesn't really sound like a kick drum. It's more like some general drum. I'd like to try bringing in some eighth notes, but with less of the velocity, so we have some kind of subtle eighth note pulse. Yeah, you can hear it a little. I mean, probably you need headphones or something to hear it, but it adds a little to the vibe, and that's kind of enjoyable. Let's put a snare on 2 and 4, but back on the high velocity. Actually, it's nice if it only comes on the 2. Let's see how the hi-hat comes in. Maybe we can also play here with something with the low velocity. Maybe just around the kick drum. Yeah. And obviously this doesn't have so much bass, but why not? There's, for example, also this one Prince song that doesn't have any bass. So sometimes you just leave your comfort zone and try to create stuff with sounds that you're not so used to. But it's just fun to go through it. You can still delete it or add other stuff later, but just the whole process brings you to things that you otherwise wouldn't have come across, probably. By the way, if you're interested in exploring further this concept of limitation in music, be known that I made a full class about the topic that you can find on my Skillshare page. And there's a link down below in the description with which you can register 1 month for free and just try it out and see if it's for you. And in this class, I just share a couple of different limitations, but the most important thing is actually that you will learn how to create your own ones, and that it's kind of easy to create your own ones, and that it's also really fun because it gives you the chance to explore what you have in a deeper way instead of always kind of urging to buy some new gear. So let's just continue with some bass. So we add another MIDI track, and this time let's just use some Ableton sound. For example, this time we stick to something with A. Let's take Amber Low Glow. Let's listen to the sample sound. Something industrial. It might actually add something nice to this whole scenery, and maybe we get a little bit of bass actually through the bass sound. So here I'm actually going to head over to the piano and just quickly find a line that fits for the whole thing. And I just had to transpose the sequence 1/2 step up, because sometimes if you're working with sequences that create some overtones, some resonances or some dissonances, you have to play a bit around, because sometimes in a certain tonality they produce less dissonances than in another one, and here it was a bit the case. So I just realized that with the bass it worked better this way, just as an information if you realize that it sounds a little different. And you can always change the tones you're using also with the previous sounds. You're just not allowed to change the presets or the sounds. And actually we got some bass, which is super cool, but I want to try also adding a pad sound for some more harmonic, beautiful stuff, if the sound allows this, because maybe we get some experimental one again. But I think then you've seen enough examples of how you can use it, and just head over to your own DAW or instruments and try it for yourself. And for the pad sound, I'd like to use Analog Lab again, because yeah, you can see that I enjoy using this and it's just really fun. And this time we're going to take a look at the pad section. Again, you can organize them, and I just think I want to go for some classic synth pad because they have here this type of section. And let's see what we have. Aggressive sky. I mean, it doesn't sound like this is going to be the most beautiful sound, but let's give it a try. Ah, I think I like it. So again, I'm going to head over to the piano and see what kind of thing I can find to add to this small little beat. And this is just how it goes, and as you can see, there's a chance that it sounds slightly weird, but you can always adjust those things later. It's just for this first creative process, the kind of limitation that influences the stuff you create. And I think it's very, very fun, and amongst maybe 10 of those that I would create, usually 5 would sound kind of interesting, and sometimes you can create them in like 5 minutes, especially if you don't want to start something like in depth. This can actually be a super cool thing to do, or if you're in a train or something. That's what I actually really enjoy doing. And the most important thing is that you know you can always adjust those limitations. So for yourself, you can say, okay, I got this new synth plugin, so today I'm just going to use this plugin to get to know their sounds, and it's actually a very fun approach of getting to know a plugin. Or you can also get a little more weird by saying, okay, you're only going to use percussion sounds or bass sounds. There are no limits, and it's also a good thing to just have some fun. You can always delete it if it doesn't work out. And also feel warmly invited to just share your own experiences with limitations or systems that you have for yourself, in order to come up with stuff that is maybe a little out of your comfort zone, or how you try to break it. Also, if you tried this, to just share how it worked for you. So just be warmly invited to share this in the comments down below. If you're interested in seeing more small creations like this, be warmly invited to follow me on Instagram, because there I intend to share those more often in the future. And also there's a playlist here with more tips on creative composition, producing, mixing also, that you're warmly invited to check out. Also, if you enjoyed this content, consider subscribing to this channel. And apart from that, I just wish you inspiration with whatever it is that you create, and really hope to see you soon again at this channel. Bye!